Still unclear about the evidence for HIV's existence, I decided the best way to verify it would be to actually see it.
One thing that I've noticed about all conspiracy theorists where evidence is concerned is they all seem to have a childlike view on what actually counts as evidence. They seem to believe that getting something on film is the only way to truly prove something's existence or something happened. I previously talked about this phenomenon in my 9/11 miniseries, where I discussed the lack of footage of the collapse of World Trade Center 7 from the south, the lack of footage of the Pentagon attack, and Flight 93's crash. What's interesting about these examples and others regarding lack of footage is they tend to be the cornerstones of conspiracy theories. How many times have you guys read in the comment section that a plane didn't hit the Pentagon because there's no footage of it, even though there actually is? To these people, it doesn't matter that you have DNA evidence, computer simulations, or actual wreckage that backs up the official story, because if you don't have it on film, preferably in 1080p, it doesn't matter. It's almost as if they have a rule to dismiss evidence that's beyond their grasp of understanding. And this nicely brings us to Brent, the producer and star of the documentary House of Numbers. Now he's trying to look for the proof of HIV's existence, and to do this he thinks the best thing that you can do is to get a picture of it.
Still unclear about the evidence for HIV's existence, I decided the best way to verify it would be to actually see it.
The movie also stars the fabulously named Eleni Papadopoulos, who works at the Biophysical Department of Medical Physics at the Royal Perth Hospital. Now it's very strange in the documentary we give the name of Papadopoulos' employer. Now I understand why it would give out similar information for other scientists in the documentary, ones who have an academic appointment and who are representing their institution on a global stage. But Papadopoulos is a lab tech. Not that there's anything wrong with that. She has an undergrad degree in nuclear physics, and her duties at the hospital are to test people for sensitivity to UV radiation. She's never been involved with any research into HIV at the hospital, nor does the hospital support her views on HIV. In fact, the Royal Perth Hospital's exclusive director, Philip Montgomery, has told her that she's not allowed to use any of the hospital's resources for any of her research, or allowed to link her private research in any way to the hospital. Yet here she is linking herself to the hospital and trying to claw at some credibility. Papadopoulos is a member of the Perth Group, an AIDS denialist group based in Perth. They testified at the appeal of a HIV-positive man back in 2006/2007. This man had been convicted with 3 counts of endangering life through having unprotected sex without informing his partners of his infection. Papadopoulos was one of the people who told the court that the man should be acquitted because she believes the existence of HIV had not been proven. Her evidence was thrown out of court, with the judge adding that she's not qualified to give out expert opinions about the existence or nature of HIV. Yet here she is, 2 years later, in this movie telling us that at the moment we cannot prove the existence of HIV.
We do not say that HIV doesn't exist. What we say is that the presently available data does not prove the existence of HIV.
Oh, really? If you watch the film, which I suggest you do just to make sure that I'm not taking anything out of context here, Papadopoulos and Brent do a good job of giving the impression that only a few people are working on HIV research, and that their work is never questioned and there's not enough data on HIV. In reality, nothing could be further from the truth. HIV research is not the work of just 1 or 2 scientists, but thousands upon thousands. Science is also a really cutthroat industry, and if you find an error in someone else's research, you mercilessly go after them. Just ask any scientist how hard it is to get their research through the peer review process. Regarding Papadopoulos' comment, it's really hard to know where to start when someone says something so incredibly stupid. Practically every analytical technique you can think of has been used to prove the existence of HIV, to help understand its life cycle, and to look for potential new drugs. I encourage anyone who's skeptical about the amount of research out there on HIV to run your own SciFinder search, or at the very least run a Google Scholar search. You will be overwhelmed by the gargantuan amount of evidence and research for the existence of HIV there is out there. How anyone can say that at present available data does not prove the existence of HIV is beyond me. Please just Google this and see it for yourself. Brent is also ignoring this mountain of data and pretends that he's unsure about HIV's very existence. He quite childishly goes on to say that the only way to prove beyond any doubt to him that HIV exists is to see a picture of it. Now, to put this in context, I'm an organic chemist. I spent a large portion of my life synthesizing a wide range of organic compounds. I've also performed a substantial amount of research on riboswitches and template-directed synthesis, and I can tell you I've never once, not once, seen a picture of anything that I've made. Never. I have to use other methods to prove that I've successfully produced them. I use NMR, Page, Moldy, etc. So what I'm getting at is, seeing a picture of something is not the be-all and end-all of something's proof of existence. But you know what? Let's just go with it. Let's have a look at some pictures, eh?
I asked Dr. Hans Gelderblom, a world-renowned electron microscopist, if he thought there was any reason to question Dr. Montagnier's published images.
I've seen these publications, stamp-size images. It's a nuisance. It's a nuisance. You do not really see much.
So we're introduced to this chap called Dr. Hans Gelderblom, who has 30 years experience in the field. Now, I honestly can't believe with someone with his experience is saying such things. It's honestly, it's unusual. I mean, wait, hang on a sec. Is that a bow tie? Bow ties are cool. Something here doesn't make any sense, but I guess, you know, without having access to an extended interview, we'll never know. Wait, what's that? They did actually release the extended footage? Yes, the House of Numbers YouTube channel would actually later go on to publish an extended interview with Hans in 2011. Now, this extended interview shows how deceitful Brent is in the editing room.
Now, Professor Kurth in the interview said that Montagnier really didn't, at least for him, Montagnier didn't convince people that he had found truly a new virus, because he said when he looked at the EMs that Montagnier showed, it was just one, and it wasn't very clear. What are your thoughts on Montagnier's publication?
This is unfortunate politics of the publishers. Today, at least. In those times, I've seen these publications, stamp-size images. It's a nuisance. It's a nuisance. You do not really see much. And I do not know how good electron microscopy was really done, but they probably should have done a bit more, and then they would have been very safe. And electron microscopy is an art and a science.
The extended interview is over 45 minutes long, but is still edited. For example, this isn't in the extended version.
Peter Duisberg?
Yes.
Oh.
In the extended version, it's very clear that Hans believes in the existence of HIV, and that he's really passionate about his field. He also seems like a really nice guy who's going out of his way to explain in layman's terms what the images show and basically how to interpret them.
Well, question of orientation. Think about the slicing problem. If you have a tomato, you make 3 slices, you are not sure about the real diameter of the tomato.
Hans begins to explain why the images in the paper are so small. He also briefly refers to the limitations of the technology in the 1980s. When he says the images are a nuisance, he's clearly talking about how he'd like to see larger images published. Not that they're a problem for people who believe in the existence of HIV. He later goes on to say that people who are not in the field like to have nice pictures of the viruses, ones that don't really show a lot of information, like the ones that were published in the early 80s.
You have to have experts discussing these things. Sometimes people are far from the microscope. They do not understand structure and function. They like to have a nice image. That's all. They do not understand sometimes, and that's a danger. I could imagine if Montagnier would have pushed the fine structure of HIV a bit more, he would have been more convincing. It was a very peculiar thing, and think about it was a side track initially.
Another example of Brent's deceitfulness in the editing room is seen later on in the documentary. This is when Brent apparently is trying to find proof of HIV's existence in the most recent images.
Once again, I turned to Dr. Gelderblom, seeking proof of HIV's existence in the most recent images available.
Here you do not see anything about the details, but I would say it's probably a virus.
These are HIV here?
Yeah.
Oh, so are these HIV too?
Yeah.
Everything's
Probably.
Probably.
Yeah.
We cut to Hans reading a journal which we presume contains the most up-to-date images of HIV. However, in the extended interview you can clearly see that Hans is reading an article called The Molecular Biology of the AIDS Virus, which a quick sci-finder search reveals was published in 1988.
Once again, I turned to Dr. Gelderblom, seeking proof of HIV's existence in the most recent images available.
But here you do not see anything about the details. There's no core to be seen because it's just the surface. But I would say it's probably a virus because of the size. It's very small and it's isometric. A lot of particles have the same size. It's technically not perfect, but the course.
So these are HIV here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what are
yeah.
these?
Think about the tomato.
Oh,
The-
so
the-
are
the-
these HIV too?
Yeah.
Everything's
Probably.
Probably.
Yeah.
But this little one here.
Dirt.
Oh,
These are the vesicles that can accumulate if you look for purified virus.
Okay.
It's in the supernatant, and you concentrate it
Okay.
if you purify. It's not purification.
Still not convinced that Brent is a git and he's manipulating what people are saying in the editing room? Well, check this bit out.
Dr. Gallo, 1 year later, published photographs he claimed to be of HIV. Were his any better?
These pictures were not so impressive. They were not much better than Montanier's images.
And here's the extended version.
But these pictures were not so impressive in those times. They were not much better than Montanier's initial images.
Cutting Hans off mid-sentence to make it seem like he's talking about all pictures of HIV and not the ones back in the early 80s is incredibly dishonest. I honestly can't believe you did this, Brent. This is so dishonest.
These pictures were not so impressive. They were not much better than Montanier's images. But these pictures were not so impressive in those times. They were not much better than Montanier's initial images.
And it's not like he wasn't even shown some fantastic pictures of HIV. I mean, look at these ones. They're almost identical to Hans's model that he has in the background. But surprise, surprise, they never make their way into the documentary.
Here you see the trimers.
I see.
Triangular, and we did include also influenza virus, G glycoprotein, the hemagglutinin, which is a trimer structure.
Okay.
And we compared, and then it was very clear, 15 years ago already.
The extended interview also shows that Brent had an agenda before sitting down with Hans. He's constantly trying to poke holes in his images, but it's painfully obvious that Brent is out of his intellectual league. Hans has to constantly remind Brent what the images actually show and that HIV replication is not perfect.
But very typical, that core.
Now these ones here,
Yeah,
they don't look the same and they look
Nope.
smaller.
yep.
Are those-
Again, think about the tomato. If you make a thin section that is covering only the upper region,
Okay.
it will be smaller.
What about this here? There's absolutely nothing in the center.
Okay.
Is that a virus or would that just be garbage?
Just kind of an enveloped structure. There's a lipid envelope.
How come?
How come? Because this is thin section electron microscopy. If you have a cone in this Ebene, in this direction, and you cut it transversely, you end up with such a structure. Budding structures.
Now something like this couldn't be HIV, right? Because it has 2 nucleus.
Why not? A packaging problem. That happens.
Now this wouldn't be HIV though, right? It's too big.
Yeah, but here is budding. Again, the problem of an ultra thin section. You do not know how this will be connected to the cell.
This core though looks extremely different than say this core here.
I would say so, yeah. I have no idea how to explain this large triangle. I'm used to that structure, let's say, and make a section in that way, then you end up with this one.
But would you say that's HIV too?
Yeah. Think about 10,000 non-infectious, malformed particles and one infectious.
So these are the
These
same.
are
though.
randomly orientated, and these are very thin slices,
Okay.
and therefore you have different projections.
Now the one thing I don't
Yeah,
see on these.
we have more.
Oh, okay.
Oh, Brent, you'd be adorable if you weren't doing the most horrific things. So yeah, I think that's about it. I've shown that Brent manipulated footage to make it seem like Hans was saying something that he wasn't, and that he doubts the existence of HIV. And I've also shown that he was actually shown images of HIV, but he decided not to put them in the movie. So yeah, I think I'm done here.
It's one thing to look like, and another thing is to be a virus.
What?
It's one thing to look like, and another thing is to be a virus.
Still unclear about the evidence for HIV's existence, I decided the best way to verify it would be to actually see it. It's one thing to look like, and another thing is to be a virus.
Oh god, I think I'm having a stupid induced stroke. So let me get this right. Okay, so even if Brent was shown pictures that help prove the existence of HIV, which he was, which don't appear in the regular documentary, it wouldn't matter, because apparently it's one thing to look like a virus, and it's one thing to actually be a virus. What the actual fuck? So what is the actual point, Brett? I don't really understand this. This has really wound me up. Okay, because you go out of your way to ignore all the mountains of data that show that HIV actually flipping exists. You ignore all that data and just decide that, you know what, I just want an image of it. And then when you're shown images of HIV, you decide to ignore them because they don't appear in your flipping documentary. And then what? Then you decide to have this woman who is unknown in the scientific community say that, you know what, it's one thing to look like a virus and one thing to actually be a virus. What is the actual point of this in your movie if you're just going to dismiss everything like this? You are flipping annoying, and I feel like I'm losing my mind. Ugh. Alright, sorry guys, I need to calm down now. Oh god, this movie, it just winds me up so horrifically. It just winds me up so much because it is so dangerous, and this kind of stupidity just flipping hurts. Ugh. Anyway, I think I'm going to go get myself a beer. Anyway guys, hopefully you enjoyed that one, and if you did, subscribe, and I will try and calm down for my next episode. Bye guys.